just speaking to you for the benefits of our viewers online. So, has it started? Is the question. Great. So I've just been saying a bunch of stuff to people out in the world of the internet, but now time for your formal welcome to Born to Be Wide. Tonight we're looking at showcase events. We have our application process for WideDays open at the moment, and I'm joined by three illustrious panelists, two of whom book a showcase event and one of whom has played several and done a very good job of it. So if you are watching online, you can send in questions to hello@borntobewide.co.uk. And then I am going to try and work out a way to receive those questions without having to interrupt the flow, but it might involve getting my mobile out. So if I am getting my mobile out, I'm just trying to read your questions. Bruce, there's a seat on the end for you there, sir. Afterwards, we'll be going off air, but if you happen to be watching, having your dinner and fancy coming to join us in person, then although the panel is sold out, the DJs and the socializing is free, and there'll be plenty of space to hang out. So, for those of you who don't know me online, my name's Olaf Furniss. I'm the co-founder of Born to Be Wide. The 20th birthday is coming up on the 15th of February, so mark that date. And I'm also the founder of WideDays, Scotland's music industry convention. So from now, I'm going to introduce our illustrious guests. So Mobo, do you want to start?
Hello, how you doing? My name is Mobo Agoro. I'm a festival booker and festival coordinator. It's a conference actually called Pitch Scotland, which happens every year in Glasgow over 2 days. Outside of that, I'm an artist manager, and I run a music platform called Up to Standard, and it's all around hip hop and black music in general.
Hey guys, I'm Rosie. I basically used to work at WideDays myself and now work on Resonate in Glasgow. So it's again another music showcase. We host about 5 artists, have a load of panelists, and I'm an artist manager.
Hello. Yeah. So I'm Amelia. I'm the drummer and singer of Midnight Ambulance. We're a Scottish two-piece, and we played WideDays this year.
It's kind of following on what Amelia said, but you are facing a room full of the industry who aren't going to be jumping up and down. It's also, in my opinion, like, don't get steaming before it. Like, it's a job. If you want your, like, bands to be really successful, you need to see that as your career, and you don't turn up to work drunk. So the industry don't want to see that. And again, it's like coming off stage, like, just some people might be a bit reserved because, like, they are working at the same time, so don't take it offensively.
Yeah, I would say it's a hustle, to be honest, because you're there to perform, but you're also there to meet people, and you're there to connect with people and impress them and leave an impression in whatever way that is. Going to the first showcase events I went to, I just seen it as a perfect opportunity to have all the people in the room that I would usually email and that just wouldn't get back, and you can put a face to the name that way. That's what I wanted to add.
There's a seat next to Bruce there, and all right. Okay. Well, if the next person can have a seat next to Bruce, just take your jacket off, please, and not you, Bruce, Nathaniel. It's. I think that is a really good point, because this whole thing about getting drunk, very often because people are nervous. If you are nervous or you have performance anxiety, speak to the British Association of Performing Arts Medicine, who are one of the 2 beneficiaries of your ticket money if you've paid to get in tonight, and they can direct you to someone that can help with that. But the other thing with getting massively hosed up the night before is that you won't be on your best the next day when you play. And we're many years ago, there was an act that the manager was a friend of ours. He was totally pestering us to put the band on at WideDays. This was before we had a formal selection process. And they played, and the singer's vocals were awful. And it was just like, and we knew they'd got hosed up the night before, and we were like, well, they're doing the Great Escape, and they've just fucked the biggest festival in. Oh God, I started the swearing. I wasn't going to swear tonight. And they just fucked the biggest festival, or not festival, showcase event really in the UK. So why would we bother? And that kind of really turned us. That was the kind of tilted it in the other direction. And they're not around anymore. So I guess that speaks volumes. But I think that those sorts of things are really big differences, and we're going to come on to, once you are accepted for a showcase, how you should approach it and what you should do. But I think there's also something before you even apply. What kind of things should you be considering in terms of which events to apply for and what kind of things to have prepared?
I think have a plan. Like, know what conference you're applying to. Obviously, look at the people that have played beforehand, but have a plan that you can sort of tie the conference into, So if you can tie in WideDays to maybe that launching you into releasing a song or playing a set of shows, like that's something that would be really important, I think, for the application process.
I agree with Mobo, and I think something to keep in mind is like your plans can change. But if you've took the time to really try and figure out your 12-month plan to let us kind of see what you vision your project to be, we will probably take you serious as well. It's just kind of getting all your stuff together and really being organised.
Yeah, I think from, as an artist, I think it can be tempting to apply to everything and think, oh, this will get me this opportunity or that opportunity, or I'll be able to speak to these people there. Particularly for the shows that are abroad, we're thinking this is where all the bands make it. But I think the most important thing is timing. That's a lot of advice I got from, the kind of industry who actually run these events. It's really, you don't want to go too soon because that can actually be a bit detrimental. I think putting it in and going into something that you're ready for and you're going to smash it is much better than going to somewhere like South by just because it looks quite cool. So I'd say think about that, and yeah, as the others were saying, definitely tie it into your kind of overall strategy. Like, there's actually no rush, and I think taking your time and doing it right it's better.
I'd say that really looking at the type of event it is also really important, and how they present their showcases. I mean, one of the great things with Pitch is that there's an open mic session, and I saw at least 3 acts this year in the open mic session where I thought, right, I'd really like to see a whole set by them, and that's a really good entry stage before, maybe doing the open mic before going into the apply for the full-blown showcase. And I think there's also, events have different levels. So essentially for us, we're looking for artists that have already built a fan base or built a bit of a buzz or have something going on, but also know what direction they're going in. It's kind of dispiriting, and this has happened to us a few years ago, where you sit this before we got a really much more rigorous application process, and I was sitting with an artist and I was like, so what are your plans? What would you like? And the answer was like, well, maybe like to play Edinburgh. And I'm like, you live in fucking Glasgow. It's like, you don't need us to spend loads of time and energy on helping you just to get an Edinburgh gig, And I think that just phone up Nick at Sneakies or, the guys, Craig here at the depot or something, And I think this is it's an important thing, because having everything ready and everything in place is really important. When I go to other people's events, I will I do my homework, and I kind of really want to see who's on the bill, and I want to know about that artist. And if there's no biography, or the biography's in a language that I don't understand, but I'm coming from, and you know, I do speak 3 languages, but sometimes there are limits, and it's like, well, actually, you could have just got your bio translated on Google Translate. It would have been better than nothing. Or, you know, just really knowing where I can hear this music and what music is out there. And I think that in the applications, one of the things that we see is, well, all right, this is a good track, but it was done 2 years ago. What have you been doing in the past 2 years? You know, send a private link, because even if people aren't going to share it. You know, I think there's this paranoia about people, if I send a private link, then, you know, it's going to leak. And it's like, well, I don't think that's a massive issue unless you're Radiohead or something, you know. And even then, they kind of leaked it themselves anyway. But the thing is with that, if you've got that, people want to connect to your music as it is. But if you've got a total banger that you did, you know, a year ago and a year and a half ago that has got you like millions of streams, then do stick that in, but also, and have some video if you can as well, because I'm going to an event soon, and all the artists had like a video, and I quite like that. It's quite nice to see some visual creativity there as well, or even if it's a live video, that really helps get a sense for what the performance is like. Are there any other things that you would say were absolutely crucial in terms of stuff to put in?
Up-to-date links of like what you're doing. As Olaf was saying, that like if it's a private link, that's okay as well. But we do want to know like what's been happening. If you haven't released over a little while, what are you working on? You know, and then I think if you've got videos of you performing, amazing. If not, it's something that can be done, and that will help, you know, to see, okay, this person can perform with someone else. It's not just what I'm hearing on Spotify. What were you going to say, Rosie?
I want to touch base on the videos as well, because for me, I want to be able to see that you are like ready to play live. And it sounds like you might have a great producer, your track might sound amazing, but it doesn't mean you can play live on a stage well yet. And that's such a vital thing. It just kind of lets us kind of know who you are in a sense as well. So also with links, see if you're putting links in like bios or whatnot, I would advise not just putting a Spotify link on. I would put like your FFM link or whatever. Not everyone uses Spotify. Everyone around the world, like, what is it, France use Tidal?
Deezer as well,
Deezer, yeah. So it's again, like, just make it as easy for that person as possible.
Yeah, I think going back to the videos, another recommendation we got was if you're submitting a video, it's good to do one of you performing live. So you might have a really cool music video. It's a kind of, I don't know, more of a movie. But for someone who's going to book you, it's a really quick way for them to think, okay, well, what's their stage setup? Or I've only got this space left, so what kind of band would fit into that area? As well as in the application, I think it's really good to almost do the work for whoever you're applying to. So I think making it really clear that you've thought through your next steps. So not just saying, we've done all this stuff, we're really great, our music's amazing, can you book us? I think making sure that they feel it's a secure investment, I suppose. It's not a very fashionable way to think about it, but if you're going to book someone, you probably want to book someone who said, okay, this is what we've done, this is where we want to go, and this is why, is better than someone who's just, I don't know, rocking out, I suppose.
I think the thing is the investment is an important thing to mention, and I don't mean necessarily tons of money, although there is PRS Foundation does invest a lot of money in the talent development programs they support. In saying that, our talent development program covers the costs associated with the artist, but it doesn't cover the cost of our time. So when we're when we are working with artists, it's really dispiriting where you have an agreement that you've gone through 3 times and you've explained everything in an interview, and then they do ultimately just cherry pick the bits they want and don't do the things that we've designed deliberately to help the artist. So, one of them that we've introduced is something called the Artist Brunch. So all the performers at WideDays have a brunch which is hosted by a BBC presenter who really just brings them all together. Now, if we've got artists from Canada, they've come all the way from Canada, and someone from Glasgow who's been booked can't be arsed coming through because they've already done their gig. That's kind of, it's not that cool for the visiting artists, and it's not really. It's also kind of passing up an opportunity to connect with people who would really help if you did get a Canadian showcase, or could really help you in other stuff, or it might lead to an artistic collaboration as well. And a lot of funders are really big on these collaborative elements. So it is something where, notwithstanding our actual showcases, if you then apply for PRS Foundation, you say, oh, well, I'm planning to collaborate with this artist that I met at, WideDays or Pitch or Resonate, that will also, that can help unlock funding for your next move. And it's really important to take advantage of those elements as well. I think that, moving on a little bit, I mean, what do you actually ask for in your forms or in your application forms, and what's the rationale behind that?
Ours is a bit more simpler, to be honest. I want to change ours a wee bit up to what WideDays has. But it's basically, tell us about yourself, give us a couple of links to your music, video for live, your press shots. Basically, it's just stuff that we can ensure we get a basic understanding of you, yet also showing that you're gonna put in the effort to give us those things. I don't know about Pitch though.
Yeah, Pitch is pretty similar as well. It's quite straightforward. We want to know about you, your band, you as an artist. But then also there's a part that talks about who do you want to speak to and why. And I think that part is really important to us, because from a showcasing perspective, we'll be able to maybe connect you, and help you in that direction, but also shows us that you've actually engaged, and we aren't just we want to feel a little bit special, we're not just an application that you did, so yeah.
I think that idea that you've thought about the opportunities that the event offers way beyond the just the live element of it is really important. And we used to say, well, you just get a free pass for the conference, and that was it, expecting people to turn up. And then what we found was that actually loads of artists and their managers didn't turn up, even though they had a free pass to connect with everyone and do meetings, because all our speakers agreed to do meetings, 15-minute meetings. So there's that whole dimension. Come on, there's room for one more. We got a seat. Anyone got a spare seat next to them? There are all these speakers at the events. There's all these people who can help, who would also are really worth connecting with. And this is one of the things that now, through the technology that we use to arrange the meetings, we can actually see how many meetings are done. And to be honest, we can actually see who's connected with whom to do meetings. And sometimes you're like, well, all right, all these things that people are saying about what they want, they're not actually really turning into reality, because here are all these different people that you could meet, but you've not connected with them. And I think that is something to, it's something to really keep in mind. Have that plan, have something to say. And if you've not done something, that's okay as well. Just, it's like, if you're like, all right, well, I was really ill for a year, that's why I haven't done anything. Or, there's all these reasons why I disconnected, or I fell out with all my bandmates and got really fed up, that's kind of all right. I'd rather see that than someone that's not got any reason for leaving something blank.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've been reading quite a lot of applications this week, and a lot of the boxes are blank. It just, it gives me like the ick. Like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to even listen at that point, because I feel like, in a sense, this might be the wrong word, but I feel like it's quite disrespectful. It feels lazy. I agree with Olaf. I'd rather you were honest about your situation. So.
And I think another thing that just because the other beneficiary of tonight is attitude is everything. If you have other health reasons or disabilities that we now ask about that in our forms. So it's kind of really important to emphasize that increasingly now there's an awareness around that. Pitch had Sanjeev playing and they set up a ramp so he could get onto the stage. So I think amongst us here in Scotland, we're actually doing a lot more in this area than most other international events. But if there are extra support needs you have, tell us about it, because that way we can actually try and help with it. It's an incidental point, but I think it is something that we put in our forums now, and it's worth letting people know. I mean, have you got this with Resonate or?
Yeah, basically, well, it doesn't directly ask you, but we actually have had some people be very honest about that, and it just helps us when planning ahead.
So, I mean, you mentioned something that annoys you with leaving something blank. Have you got a pet peeve on this basis, Mo, when you're reading applications?
Yeah.
What's your top 3?
Oh man, don't be lazy to start off with. Actually show us that you want this. Don't lie on the application. I might let you talk a little bit about that. But my third one is, do your research. It's, really important, because it's, you'd be wasting your time. Pitch, for example, is a hip-hop focused conference, and, genres around that. So if the music doesn't necessarily fit, you can save yourself the time. And I'm not saying this for you to not apply, we're spreading out, but, yeah, do the research. But what was your one when someone lied?
Yeah, I was venting today to Mobo. Basically, I saw an application and the person had said I'd recently sold out Sneaky Pete's and King Tut's. However, when I researched, it was 6 years ago. This isn't you, Josh. I know I'm staring at you. Don't worry.
Actually, yeah, he told me he'd...
It's not Josh. But basically, they said they recently sold out the venues. And when I looked at it, it was 6 years ago. So for me, I started to question, why are you saying recently? I would rather know that you're taking the break, or as Olaf said, there was a split in the band or something. I just don't want to have to then do my due diligence and find out it's not what it says.
The other thing that I always amuses me is we've played this festival, and many more, and it's yeah, really? What are the many more? Why don't you just, if you've played many more, stick them all in, it's, there's no word limit on our application form. So, that's one that, the cynical journalist bastard in me generally picks up on those kind of things. So if you have done something, don't, if you've done good stuff, then fire that in, it's, I mean, on that pet peeve one, we have people that apply regularly, right? And there's a lot of people that apply, and we can go through the selection process that we respectively have, where they'll say things like, yeah, and if we got selected, we'd come and we'd do loads of networking and we'd connect with people, and it's yeah, you can actually do that anyway, even if you're not playing. And in fact, you really should do that anyway, because that way you get to learn about the event, you get to make the contacts, and you're probably going to be meeting people that are selecting the following year. I mean, that's certainly the case with, you met selectors at WideDays that were, then went on to grade your application. And I think that, those things are, really worth mentioning. Is, we see this, and we tried it out one year where we offered everyone a free pass that had made it onto the long list, and all these people that were going on about how they were going to network and stuff, and it's Yeah, you didn't take advantage of a free pass, and that year it even had dinner included, and and it is an interesting thing that because events in Europe are generally quite sort of nice in this way. North American events, Canadian Music Week makes you buy a pass before you can even apply. A lot of them, charge a lot of the American ones charge, including South by, unless you get a special ticket, charge you to apply. And this partly because they get millions of applications, not quite millions, but thousands of applications. And, they pay people to grade those. So there's a reason that they want to kind of have some kind of filter, or at least be able to pay people to listen to it. But I think that is God, I've lost my thread now. What is this? Pardon?
Pet peeves.
Pet peeves, yes. So this is all about the networking stuff, and I spent 16 hours on an application yesterday in front of a screen, so I'm a bit fried today. But the point with this is that you have, if you're going to say you're going to do something that we know you can do anyway, then, rather than going, I'm going to connect with lots of people, have a look at who's going to be there, or have a look who was there before and say, right, this is the person I want to connect with because I'm interested in this, or here's someone that I'm really interested in that was there last year and I've watched the videos, and show that you've connected with the event. I mean, there are artists who've come to WideDays and ended up playing it that came to Born to Be Wide and off the record events. Swim School are a really good example of that. So when Swim School were in the listening session, that's where they met their manager, and he liked what he heard and ended up working with them. And I think that is something where quite often, especially if it's events that are further away, it's really worth going to check them out beforehand, so you can get a sense for the venues, you can get a sense for what they're like. And I was at an event called Waves Vienna a few weeks ago, and I actually connected with a whole bunch of artists that weren't even playing. In fact, I connected more with them because they put something forward for the listening session, and I really liked a couple of things. And, hardly any of the artists that were actually performing there bothered to get in touch, which I think brings me on to the next question. I mean, Amelia, You've done WideDays, you've done Future Echoes, you went down to the Great Escape to check out the lay of the land. How did you approach it in terms of getting in touch with delegates, in terms of preparing for going to the event?
So I feel like there's three stages, kind of. So before the event, I think just a few kind of housekeeping rules. So tidying up your socials, tidying up your website, making sure you've got everything so that if someone does hear music and then they Google you, it's easy. Because I think if there are any barriers in anything with comms, people just lose interest. So making sure that's really good is the first step. And then definitely go through, a lot of these platforms, they literally have the list of people who are going and their direct contact details, which is a bit of a gold mine, I think, especially when you're someone who is self-managed, or you're even a solo artist. So even if there are people there that maybe you're thinking, I'm not going to contact them this time, definitely keep their email address for future reference, or note down their name if you do meet them. It's really nice to be able to speak to someone and have a bit of context. Remember that they're also human too. They're not just there to kind of serve you as an artist. They're proud of what they do, and it's nice to put the effort in to know what they're up to. So yeah, definitely sending them emails beforehand, on a personal email, not a big spiel that you've copied and pasted. It's quite obvious when that happens. I know it can be really time consuming, especially when you've got so much stuff to do, but it's really worth it. And when I went to any of these events, actually a lot of people knew who I was beforehand, because I was one of the only artists that had messaged. I think that kind of got us in on a good foot to start with, and it made a huge difference, so definitely do that. Then when you're there, obviously, as I say, making sure that you have your kind of elevator pitch. So I don't mean go in with that first of all, because it's a bit
kind of obnoxious, singing, oh yeah, I'm the artist, you want to hear about me. But if they do ask, I think it's good to be succinct and know the kind of key points so that they can place your role as an artist in the role of artist they know. So good things to do, okay, who do you sound like? And again, that can be a hard one because you think, I'm unique and I'm the only one that sounds like me. And I'm going to change music history, but you probably sound like someone, or a mashup between people, and that can be really helpful for them. Also having a business card or something is really good. And then once you've obviously done the whole thing and you've played, once you've finished, send them an email once you've left the event and say, it was really nice to meet you, thanks so much for all that information. Or even if there was someone you really wanted to meet and you didn't get to meet, it's useful to say, I'm really sorry we didn't connect, but I see you're going to this next festival that I'm also going to, can we meet up then? So just putting the time in, I think, to network, and networking is very much, it's old-fashioned, it's not something that's easy and quick, you have to put in the time and just be patient. So yeah, that makes a big difference.
And I think this is the thing is, if you don't like the word network, and we used to ban it actually, when we're describing Born to Be Wide, we just thought, it just reminded me of working in London and people doing something called shoulder surfing, where they're chatting to you and then they're just looking over your shoulder to see who's more important to talk to. And I guess I shouldn't resort to the type of industrial language I'd normally use to describe that sort of person, but it is something that I find really troublesome. And I've actually gone to events where I've met the same person 4 years running, and it's only the fourth year I've even found out what he did for a living. It turns out he's a really big radio plugger in the States. But the thing is that I just connected with him. And I think, forget about the word network, and it's got negative connotations. It's much more about connecting with people. And that isn't necessarily going to someone, can I have your business card? There was a music business course in North West England, and you could always tell their students because they would just ask you for your card, and it's like, who the fuck are you? It's like, I don't have a card, shut up, I'm having a drink. Come and engage with me like a normal human being, and I think that those kind of things are, a lot of the time people that go to those events, they might be a big cheese in the music industry, but they're in, some provincial town in Sweden, and it's a great leveler. Because at that point, they know no one. So if you've gone there the year before, assuming you've done your homework, you've found out some good places to go for a coffee, the local record shop, and you've done some research, suddenly they're your pal, because you can actually show them something and be their buddy when they're there. And keep in mind that a lot of people in the music industry are quite strange, and so it is like that thing where they're perhaps not the most outgoing anyway, so that can actually really stand you in good stead as well. What about you guys? I mean, what tips would you have in this regard?
I'm going to probably steal Mobo's because Mobo taught me something tonight. Mobo's screensaver is a QR code.
Oh,
and
yes.
That is great.
Yes. There's another thing you can do with LinkedIn and WhatsApp. Yeah, if anyone wants to know, I'll show you afterwards. But it means you never have to have a business card, and then you get their details straight into your phone. Just make sure you back it up, because I lost my phone in a Mexican cantina last year, and all my contacts that I'd lovingly scanned with WhatsApp disappeared, and that was it for 3 years. But yes, back it up. That's the other thing once you have it. But that's really good to get people's details and remind them of where you met. I mean, that happens, very often drink is involved. You're having a great time, it's 3 a.m, but it can be quite useful a week later if someone's going, yeah, we're in that recording studio, you're the one that gave me the whiskey, and it's like, yeah, okay, right, now I've got the reference point as well. LinkedIn's pretty good in that way as well, rather than hitting people up on Facebook. And the other thing that is really important, put people's name in emails. I've been saying this for like 20 years, but you cannot say it often enough. Some arsehole in London sent me a message yesterday, and it just said hi there, and I've never heard of them, and they were obviously wanting to punt me something, and I'm like, I think you've got the wrong person. My name's Olaf, not there, and left it at that. But it is. It's really irritating when someone can't be bothered to put your name in an email, and even though in the live industry there's this fashion for like just using as 2 words or something, you don't want to be like those old agents there or those old promoters. It's politeness will get you a long way.
I have a personal thing. I don't like being messaged on social media. That's just like one of the worst things to me. It's personal for a reason. It's like, if you want to know that person, I'm sure you can find their email. Like, whether that's they manage an artist that you like, I'm sure if you go on the band's profile, the email will be there. If it's more for like, let's say the conference side, I'm sure our email will be on the website. And there's also a website called Roster. You can like get a free subscription for like a month. But that is like a hack to the industry where like you could go on and get like Metallica's manager's email. So I would recommend doing that.
And I think, that thing with, I don't hardly use social media anymore. It's other than LinkedIn. So it is that thing where email has been a constant. I go on Facebook about once a week, and I occasionally put something out on Twitter. Kit always jokes that when she can tell that I've logged in because I'll share about 20 things in one go or like about 20 things. But it is that where email's still the best, I think, and it is it's a work thing, and I'd say that LinkedIn's worth doing as well if you're that way inclined.
I was actually going to pick up something you said, Olaf, about the networking thing, because I think that was like one of the biggest things I took away was that I think obviously it's a very weird environment because everyone's kind of pretending you're all there to have a nice time, but everyone's kind of eyeing everyone up and thinking, okay, who are you, like how, like where are you standing? But I think that the most important thing is actually just to be like polite and to be kind as well, because I think getting distracted with someone's job title is a really bad way to go. I mean, for your role as a musician, but also as a human being, I suppose, so double whammy. But I think that connecting with someone on a human level, you're going to have a better time, but you're also, in the long run, you're going to make a better connection. And, if you see them at something else, then they'll remember you. And, yeah, I think, like, for networking, just be yourself, be nice, be polite. And you don't actually have to go in with anything, musical even at the start. You can just have a conversation with someone. It's a music event, so the topic will probably come up. People want to know, okay, so what band are you in? But I think it's much nicer to be interested in the person, even buy them a drink, and then it will get onto the topic. And then you can do the kind of business side.
I wanted to add with networking as well. It's not just about networking upwards. It's about networking lateral. Can't even say the word, but you know what I'm talking about, right? It's about like the person next to you as well, because that person might end up. You were telling me a story about someone that was at one stage and then a couple of years later was the head of so and so, and you never know who they end up working for. So it's important.
And yeah, if you're a dick to someone, and they become important, that's even worse. Yeah, I mean. I know a guy that became head of A&R at Sony, and a manager had been rude to him as a young A&R 10 years earlier, and he was like, I'd never listen to a single band that he sends me, So people have long memories, And I think that's another thing that's really important, is that if you are at a showcase event, go to other people's gigs and connect with all the art. If you're an artist, connect with all the artists that are local. That might actually get you somewhere to stay for free, or it might get you, a bass if your bass is lost in transit. I befriended. I'm not even in a band, but I befriended these guys from a studio. They're a studio and a label collective. They're older musicians, and it's an amazing place. And this year. At the event, an Estonian manager was like, do you know where I can get a Rhodes keyboard for tomorrow? And then she's like, actually, it's for tonight. And I was like, well, I know who I can ask. And they actually managed to get it. but that was because I'd kind of made the effort to connect with these guys. They weren't, you know, they're not mega famous in Sweden. They're not kind of name producers, but it's like they're really nice people, and they have this amazing studio and really good after parties. And I think that this is the thing: go to other people's showcases, connect with other musicians, and don't see it, like you say, don't see it as like, oh yeah, they're mega important because they're, you know, they're head of Universal, or, you know, this is a really big booking agent. It's about making those kind of broader contacts and using it. You know, if you go to an event and there's an opportunity to meet with lots of people, just meet with lots of people, whoever they might be, you know. And quite often folk will have one thing on, you know, especially these days, people do about half a dozen things. So it could well be that they're listed as one thing, but they do various other things that they've not listed but could actually be of real value to what you do. Now, I think now it's time to move on. Imagine you get that slot and you're ready to go to the showcase. What should you be doing in advance? Obviously, Amelia's already emailed everyone, and everyone knows who she is. And this is literally what happened at Future Echoes. I would go, people, oh, look, there's 3 acts from Scotland on, and they're like, oh, yeah, Midnight Ambulance, they've already been in touch with us. And I think that this is, so, you know, that works. But, I mean, what else in terms of, you know, maybe advancing the gig or tech specs, that kind of stuff?
Always make sure you've sent your tech spec. Like, never ever miss that. It can cause so many issues. But I think also just kind of planning a schedule. Like, I'm quite a stickler with the band I manage, and it's like, say we're going on tour, if you're not 15 minutes early, like, you're late to me. Like, I've had that issue where actually a previous artist I worked with, we nearly missed our Great Escape showcase. We'd left like an hour and a half, like, extra time on the journey, and we still made it, about 5 minutes, Olaf? Yeah, you don't want to be me in that situation with Olaf.
It's bad enough for us, yeah.
But yeah, it's basically like the whole saying, if like you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So just make sure you've sent everything you need. Look at your venue specs. Maybe if there's a contact for the sound engineer or lighting engineer in advance, like hit them up over email, send them what you like, send them your set list. I also would always have a set list for your sound engineer and lighting engineer if they're in-house. And also always remember to say thank you to them and be nice, because if you're rude to them, your show is getting ruined. So.
And I think this is, you know, it's a general rule, but it is, you know, when you arrive somewhere, do introduce yourself to everyone. Like, quite literally everyone you encounter. There's not going to be that many when you get there for a show. Introduce yourself to the other artists. You will only remember about a quarter of the names if you're lucky, but that's like a quarter more than if you don't ask, and they'll probably not remember yours either, so it's all okay. But it's just making that connection, because if you can go to the bar person, you know, Claire, can I get a water please? Or, you know, you could say to the door person, right, okay, you know, Alan, I've got someone coming in. You know, you make those contacts and it just smooths the way for everything else. And I think that, you know, another element in terms of arrive the day before your showcase. Go out and promote, go and see other artists, go and take advantage of the conference element, and really make a point of getting into the event. It's not a gig, it's a showcase. So you want people to come along, and there's dozens of other acts playing at a lot of these events, and you need to stick out. And the easiest way to start with that, seriously, is just to email everyone that is there, or use the directory. Seriously, I've been at hundreds of different showcase events, and every time I can count on one hand how many artists actually contact me. Occasionally a manager does, but it's much harder to say no to an artist than it is to a manager, especially if they call you there instead of your name. So it is something to keep in mind in that regard. And I think that take gifts. Seriously, you can. Shortbread is currency. You know, it's it works really well, and it's like 150 for a little Walker's thing. But they're, you know, fridge magnets. You know, whiskey if you can afford it. You could buy little hip flasks and take it. Just all of these things make it. It's all about making a connection with people, and I think that even if it's not volunteered, and most events don't volunteer it, ask who the stage manager is. Ask who the sound engineer is going to be, and if you can afford it, bring your own sound engineer, because so many events, especially the big ones where they're really stretched. Well, I mean, Rosie, you can talk about this. Like, you know, you've been in that situation, yeah?
Yeah, I had an artist play Great Escape where I swear down the sound engineer had never seen a sound disc. Vocals getting cut, like, just guitars louder than like everything else, the amount of feedback. Ended up where like another artist I manage who produces, like, he ended up on the desk because it was just like the biggest shit show that I've experienced.
And I think that can go, you know, things can go wrong where, you know, no matter how much planning is involved. We had some issues last year because the original engineer had COVID and someone else had to jump in, and I think that those things arise. So it's where you can afford it, it's worth doing. I mean, Midnight Ambulance took their own engineer to Future Echoes, and I think that was it was a really good move. If you can afford to do it, it's worth considering. And I think that also in terms of preparation, make sure that you can set up super quick. It's not like your own headline show which you put together. There's other artists on, so learn how to dismantle everything and to put stuff together really quickly. It's so important.
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, I'm lucky in the sense that the other half of Midnight Ambulance is a backline technician for bands, so it's been drilled into me. But yeah, you want your performance obviously like to be slick and really powerful, but I think it's almost like you need to rehearse, pack up and pack down. That should be really fast, because it might say on the advance, oh yeah, you get a sound check, but that could change. You could absolutely not have a sound check. So I think being confident enough to know what you're going, we know how to deal with that. And also if you do have your own sound engineer, that really helps, because they can also, while you're setting up all of your material, they can go and talk to the stage manager and try and liaise. It obviously is an extra cost, but honestly, I mean, we didn't really have the money, but that's what we put our money into. We maybe sacrificed something else, but we've never done a show without our own sound engineer, and it's no disrespect to house engineers. It's just that this was our they've gigged with us a lot. They know what parts of the songs need pushed, need pulled. They know the material. So I think that's a really good thing to invest in. And if you go on things like PRS, there's some international showcasing funds. You can put money in for that too. But yeah, definitely pack up and pack down should be super fast.
Yeah, I agree. We basically in the rehearsal room, the boys I work with practice that all the time before we're going on tour or whatever. It's how quick can they get done? How quick can we get everything, the whole entire drum kit set up? If you're in a band as well, I would advise, even though you might not be the drummer, learn a bit about the drum kit. It takes ages. And also always bring a spare guitar, spare strings, spare plectrums. Maybe also practice with your band, what happens if a lead cuts or something. How are you going to handle that on stage? It's just about being prepared.
I think that that is that thing as well, is that be prepared for the worst. Quite often, showcases can go horribly, not often, but they do go horribly wrong, and even where they're ethical events and they want to do right by the artist, something can just happen, and so try and channel your inner zen in those situations. I mean, I saw one band where you literally couldn't hear the vocalist for 2 songs. The feedback was horrendous. The whole thing was dreadful. By the 3rd song, you could start to hear her vocals, and I went to speak to them afterwards, and it was you handled that so well, and they were just Yeah, well, we thought it might even be funny to do a mimed song at some point. They were so professional and cool about it. And I was like, God, if that had been me, I'd have been raging, yeah? And I think that, you know, it is, you also don't blame the person don't assume it's the person's fault and always the sound engineer's fault. There could be other reasons for that. And I think it's, you know, I've seen an artist totally lose our shit with a student sound engineer who wasn't told that he was meant to be setting it up, and he was in his second year of sound engineering, and you know, it was really the event organizer that should have set up the whole PA, and you know, this poor kid was at the receiving end of like a very angry Spanish musician who'd traveled very far to be there. So I think that, you know, if you're polite but also assertive, there are that's a good measure. And I think especially if you're traveling abroad or further afield, you have got, if you're being really professional, you have got an absolute entitlement to demand that professionalism is reciprocated from the event organizer. And you know, even if you're in a crappy venue, if you don't like the lights, ask for the lights to be changed. If you don't like something, you know, if there's someone shaking ice cubes for a cocktail while you're doing your stripped back acoustic set, by this point you'll know all the names. Just ask them not to be making noisy drinks while you're doing your show. All of this sort of stuff. So, you know, quite often where agents and managers really come into their own, but there's nothing to stop you asking for those things as well. I mean, is there anything that you would ask for, anything else you would add to that in terms of the ask from events?
A lesson I learned the other week on tour was genuinely always ask for water. And do that in advance. I ended up in a venue in the middle of Liverpool who refused to give the artist water. But I also think when going into the venue, I know we spoke about like introduce yourself to the engineer and everything. I'd always say your first port of call should be your rep. And if you're too nervous to figure out who the sound engineer is or the lighting engineer, your rep will go around and introduce you to everyone. They're genuinely there to be like your best pal that night. So don't be scared to ask the questions either.
Now, have we kind of really covered everything in terms of applications? Because I'm conscious that that's something that we, you know, have we got any questions that have been emailed in by stream people? If anyone, does anyone want to write a question down or even shout it out and then I'll repeat it? So, yes.
Maybe is there something that you can say you unanimously believe about all the artists that you bring to showcases?
What do you mean?
Like artists that come to the showcases, whether it's at WideDays or Resonate, is it something? It's kind of like for these artists to be showcased, we need to believe X in these artists.
It's a really good question, and I think that when we started WideDays, because we had no funding at all, in fact, we had no funding for the first 7 editions or 8 editions. So, and the showcase lost us a lot of money, and you know, in spite of that, we did feed all the artists and we paid as much as we could for a fee and it allowed us sound checks. So I mentioned that because a lot of events don't. And I think that because we were essentially paying for it ourselves, we just had a rule that one of us in the team had to totally love an act, at least one of us. That's really changed now because we don't really select anymore, in the sense of the talent development program goes through a process where all the eligible applications are listened to by around 15 industry and media people, predominantly from Scotland, some from outside, and that then goes down to a long list. And each of those 15 selectors can give someone a gold star if they want to. So that means that if someone gets a gold star, they get onto the long list by virtue of that, even if they haven't scored on a range of different things. And those things are, you know, press coverage, you know, general interest, experience, international interest comes into this as well, because what we're really trying to do is provide a stepping stone for international opportunities. And that then goes down to a long list which is selected mainly by people from outside Scotland, because what we've found is that very often people are a big fish in a small pond, but there's, you know, umpteens artists that sound like that in other countries. So we want to make sure that if we're trying to get international opportunities, the international bookers are really going to be interested in those acts. So it really then comes down to a shortlist where it's an interview process, but that's more around how ready the artists are for being able to do it. And you know, we have now got an element where there's a lighter touch process which isn't quite as rigorous, where we have a bit more influence, especially because we want to make sure that, you know, there's a diversity right across the board, and that sometime, and that where we can use our own intuition a little bit as well. But overall, there's maybe a bit more leeway in those situations, but it's not. In a lot of ways, we've kind of outsourced it because we kind of need to do that because, you know, for accountability reasons and stuff as well. I mean, how's it with you guys?
I think it's, an excitement. The artist must show some form of excitement, like whether it's for themselves or the wider industry showing that interest. Momentum is relative, but I guess you need to showcase that as well.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of about, like, the first thing I would say is I want to be able to know where, not from the artist, but I want to be able to figure out in my own head where they're going to be in 10 years, to show that they've got that trajectory that's going to work. The other thing is, like, really hard work, to be honest. Some artists may sound amazing, but they're going to be, like, taking things for granted and not appreciative. So I think that also needs to come across on your application, that you are going to be working around the clock to make this work.
I think that also that DIY ethos, that I really like artists that aren't going, I want a manager, or, you know, I want a manager and an agent, and it's just like, you know, when I speak to an artist and they've organized their own tour of Germany by just calling up, calling people up or doing their homework or making those connections, I'm like, all right, that's great, because that's someone that can actually tie their own shoelaces and is willing to put in the work, you know. And I've got a lot of respect for that. I think that, you know, within our team, there is sometimes we still take the piss out of each other about, you know, artists that one of us really like that, you know, split up about 2 months later, or that, you know, one person in the team really couldn't stand their music. And, you know, there's my friend Craig's here, and used to work on WideDays, and we really liked one band, and my business partner hated them, and we, you know, still occasionally send him a link for his Christmas or something, you know. And I think that I still really like that song as well. But I think that it is one of those things that you know, there's artists whose music is definitely not my cup of tea, but I'd put my hand in the fire for them because I know that they really, you know, they're working really hard, and even though I don't personally like it, I recognize that it's quality and that there's some substance behind it. But I think that, you know, that is, again, it's worth mentioning that we don't just have live bands. We will also produce music makers, so composers, DJs making their own music, and producers. So, you know, we started that in the pandemic because no one could really play live anyway, or, well, we filmed people playing live, but, you know, it wasn't like they could play to an audience of people. So I think that for us was also that thing of, like, let's extend this, because very often DJs are also making music, and they're often a lot more switched on than people doing live music. So it is something that, if there's any DJs who also make music watching this, do apply, because we want to include you as well. Has anyone else got a question? Yeah, fire away.
Yeah, so from more of an organizational organisational or promotional side of things, what goes into putting on a showcase that kind of separates it from like a regular gig?
I think that it really varies from event to event. So for us, there's the talent development program, which is 2 full mentoring days before the event even happens, and then there's months of mentoring after that where the artist wants it. There's that involves various different talks and one-to-one meetings. Everything from health right through to collection societies, lawyer, PR, press. We see it as a partnership with the artists, and that's on the talent development program. The actual New From Scotland showcase is a bit more light touch, but we really will. If artists, it's a band called Slicks that showcased this year, a really good example where they were incredibly hardworking. Their manager is great, and we really try to sort of work with them and do stuff to help them as well, because I think that you really it is different to a regular show where the tickets go on sale. You're on a poster, and then if you're lucky, people come to the show. We've got an element where we actually say artists, so it's not just an industry audience. We ask you to, in the case of the talent development program, artists bring 75 people to the show, so it's not weird. You're playing to people who like your music, and those industry people walking in the room will see that you actually have you have fans and people that enjoy your music. So it's not like they're just turning around to their mate going, "Oh, what do you think of that?" I think those elements are, from our perspective, that even artists that are doing the New From Scotland showcase, if any of them get in touch with us or any of their management or someone else, then we'll make time to help them, even if it's could be something about touring Germany or something about sync, whatever it might be, and we'll try and help them with that. What about you guys?
It's mainly everything that you mentioned, from the artist development down to booking the showcases. But then we also have international stages, so there's a lot of work that goes into finding the right partners internationally, making sure that the people that we're inviting to come and play here would really engage. So there's a lot of admin work, I would say, compared to a gig.
Oh yeah, how could I have forgotten that? We bring all these international people over and try and push them into booking the acts. So actually, that's happened. So the big day have been confirmed for Future Echoes, and I'm sure that some of the pitch acts will be as well. And I think that's something where that international element is something that you wouldn't get from a regular gig.
Yeah, I think it's just like a lot more work, but also on the artist side. One thing to bear in mind, a lot of UK showcases are like 20-minute slots. Same with WideDays. So it's kind of just bringing what you're best at to that stage. I probably wouldn't suggest trying out new stuff that you're not confident with either. And yeah, it's a lot more planning, really.
Actually, a tip that you gave us, Olaf, which was really helpful, was to say your name basically after every song, which felt very awful, but was really useful as well. Because as Olaf said, like, people come in and out, and if they're coming in, then it's good to be like, oh yeah, we are, Midnight Ambulance. And also have something on stage, ideally, that says your name, so that if you're in the middle of a song and someone's coming in and out, they can just see what your name is. If you go and you forget, like I think it was an A4 piece of paper we stuck to the drum kit, which, didn't look great, but our name was on there, so definitely don't forget that.
And have merch if you can take it. My friend Ryan here has a merch company in Sweden, so if you're playing inside the EU, they can send you the stuff, so you don't have to worry about import stuff and carnets and all of that kind of post-Brexit shit. And basically that kind of thing is, be visible after the show. If one person is packing up, then have another person in the band at the merch stand, or if you're lucky enough to have a label like Black Hall Records, they will do it for you, and have something for your mailing list. This is like, I've got some notes here. So have a QR code that people can scan to go straight to your mailing list. Have a written mailing list for people to write down. This is good for all gigs, by the way. It's not just for showcases, and it's really useful so that you can then contact them after the show. And even if you only get 30 people in at your gig that sign up for it, that's 30 people you can hit up the next time you go there. Another thing, ask for a second show or look for additional shows, even if it's something stripped back. When we put Kapil on last year at Future Echoes, he managed to get 3 shows. Midnight Ambulance managed to get 3 shows. Lots of events don't have that. Great, we don't have it, unfortunately, because we don't have the capacity. But the Great Escape often, acts will have 2 shows if they're doing the Creative Scotland showcase, and then they'll have a later show or another show on top of that. So look for other opportunities. Songwriting camps, quite a lot of events now have songwriting camps. They're usually better funded, so you might actually get some money for your accommodation. And that can be useful. And look for maybe DJing opportunities if you also happen to be a DJ, or anywhere else where you can help out. So if we're at the Great Escape, we host the Scottish party. We're generally looking for someone that can help us out on checking people in or just in the setup. And it's not loads of cash, but it's it's 50 quid. What did we pay you? 50 quid? Can you remember?
It was very generous, thank you.
It was like Amelia helped me with the whiskey tasting, so it was like that was the best job, because you just hide in a cellar and get to drink whiskey and give people whiskey and make yourself popular. But I mean, all of those things it's worth asking. Just to ask, and I think that is also it's a really good way to connect with people. Amelia and Fraser helped with whiskey tasting this year. Last year, Kapil's done it twice, and they all like whiskey as well. So the audience, their keyboard player actually did a talk on one of the whiskeys we are serving. So that's perhaps is that the best note to end on, encouraging people to drink alcohol. Maybe it is actually, because we're now gonna end the panel session, but we're all hanging around afterwards. So someone's gonna come through and set up this bar, but come and hang out in here. We're gonna move some of these chairs out the road and then pop up these tables here. And if there's any other questions that you've got, come and ask. It would be most remiss of me not to mention the fact that we totally forgot to put our WideDays ticket prices up back in May. So we are gonna leave them at the early bird rate until midnight on Friday. So they will not get any cheaper. And so buy your WideDays ticket now. A couple of things to announce: we're running preparing for sync workshop, a 4-hour sync workshop. 3 of the participants this year ended up with a sync agent, including Amelia. Have you actually done that deal now? Because Pam keeps saying that she is going to take you on as a sync agent.
We've done a few pitches and things through Centric, but no, we're gonna.
Right. Well, Pam's after you, so this is a really good way to find another income stream and really learn how to do it. It's a 4-hour online workshop, and then if you go in for that, you go through that process, then you can put forward a composition for the Sink or Swim workshop. We also have a strand this year called Computer Says Yes. So there is a whole thing about AI these days, and every AI panel that I've seen made me glad we didn't do one at WideDays this year, because everyone just speculates and talks about Chat GPT. Anyway, our one's going to be much better. We're going to actually talk about creative platforms in AI that, that are actually useful as creative tools. And that's going to be a way of bringing the data and the tech side together with the music side of things. What else? We're going to have the A&R Brave You Brave Enough session as usual. We've got a 2-hour Strand with Attitude is Everything, so which we've confirmed gig buddies for as well. And Sanjeev has been confirmed as a speaker, and we've got lots of really nice music supervisors, including one of Mexico's best-known music supervisors, Patti Carrera. So I think that's it's almost it. And we're going to have a Meet the European CEOs session as well, so the heads of various European organizations, including Helen Smith and Jess Partridge in our new role. So I think on that note, I will say goodbye to our online audience, and go and buy yourselves a ticket and subscribe to our YouTube channel and put in a nice comment. And everyone else, I'll see you in here once I've been to the toilet and got myself a drink. Thanks for coming. Thank you, guys.